How Amish families trap flies the old order way. No chemicals, no store runs. You've probably seen the videos about Amish fly traps, how they build them, what ingredients they use, why they're cheaper than store-bought strips. But I want to show you something almost nobody talks about. The real reason Amish families stopped buying commercial fly control isn't just about money or chemistry. It's about understanding an entire language your ancestors spoke fluently and forgot to pass down. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to see flies differently. Not as a pest problem, as a signal, a messenger that's telling you something critical about your kitchen, your food storage, and your entire relationship with the seasons. If you're interested in learning the methods our ancestors used for fly control and pest management, and I mean the deep knowledge, the patterns, the entire seasonal framework that made it work, I've put together a complete guide that breaks down not just the traps themselves, but why flies appear when they do, how traditional communities read the signs, and what it means for your homestead year-round. That guide is in the description and pinned in the comments. But before you go looking for it, let me give you something most people miss entirely. Wait, this part is important, and I need your full attention for a second. Before we talk about how to trap flies, you need to understand what flies actually represent in a traditional Amish household. They aren't just a summer annoyance. They're a diagnostic tool. They're telling you something about how you're storing food, where waste is accumulating, whether your kitchen practices match the rhythm of the season. Most of us have lost that ability to read what our environment is communicating. The Amish haven't. Here's what I want you to notice. The appearance of fruit flies isn't random. It's not something that just happens in summer. In a traditional plain community household, the flies are a signal that fermentation is beginning, that ripeness is happening, that decay, which is another word for transformation, is starting. Your great-grandparents didn't fight that process. They understood it. They read it. And they built an entire food preservation calendar around exactly when these signals appeared. Think about this. If you're seeing dozens of fruit flies around your kitchen in August, it means your fruit is ripe enough to ferment, which means it's ripe enough to preserve, which means it's time to make jam, to can, to dry, to transform that abundance into something that will sustain you through the months when fruit won't be available. The flies are the clock. The flies are the announcement. The flies are, in a very real sense, doing exactly what they're supposed to do in a food system that hasn't been disconnected from natural cycles. I need to be clear about something. When you watch a video about Amish fly traps, most of them focus on the construction, the trap itself, how to build it, what materials go in it, how quickly it works. And yes, those are practical questions, but they miss the larger point entirely. The trap is the symptom management. The real work happens before the trap is ever built. And that's what I want to explore with you today, because it changes everything about how you approach the problem. The families I've spoken with in Lancaster County, the ones who genuinely haven't bought fly strips in 3 decades, they all said the same thing. And I want you to sit with this because it's almost the opposite of what you'd expect. They said, if you're seeing a fly problem in August, you're already late. The time to prevent it wasn't last month. It was in April. It was in May. It was in the way you organized your entire kitchen and food storage system for the year. This is the invisible knowledge. This is what separates the households that need to constantly manage flies from the households that simply don't have a fly problem at all. And yes, the traps play a role, but they're downstream. They're the second line of defense. The first line, the real line, it's the design of daily practice itself. Before we get into the mechanics of the traps themselves, I need to show you something that most homesteading content completely skips. The old families didn't have one trick for managing flies. They had a sequence. They had an order to things. And if you get the order right, the flies become manageable. If you get it wrong, no trap, no matter how effective, will ever fully solve the problem because you're treating a symptom instead of addressing the root. This pantry, and pantries like it, these are the reason flies don't become a crisis in these homes. The way food is stored, the timing of when it's stored, the containers used, the location in the house, the ventilation around it, all of it is designed to communicate with the seasons, not to fight them. And until you understand that system, all the traps in the world won't solve your real problem. The first rule in an Amish kitchen is this: never leave ripening fruit exposed to air and light for longer than the fruit can hold. A peach sits on a counter for 1 day. It begins to ferment slightly. By day 2, the smell has changed. By day 3, the fruit flies have found it. But what if the peach never sits on the counter? What if it moves the moment it needs to? The root cellar maintains itself. 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, with or without electricity. No ice required. No modern cooling. The temperature is the earth itself. And because the temperature is stable, because the light is almost non-existent, because the air moves slowly and deliberately, nothing ferments. Nothing broadcasts its presence to insects. The fruit stays dormant. The problem never starts. But most modern homes don't have a root cellar. The kitchen counter is where the fruit sits. The windowsill is where the jam jar waits. And that's when the traps become necessary. Not because the traps are the solution, but because the storage is incomplete. So let's step back. We've talked about what flies are. We've identified where they come from. We know that addressing the root means understanding storage, timing, and air movement. But, and this is where most people make their fatal mistake, knowing the principle and building the actual trap are two very different skills. Before we continue, I want you to pause here and really think about this. The reason these traps work isn't because they're complex. It's because they're based on what flies can actually perceive. They can smell. They can see movement. They cannot reason. And when you understand the difference between intelligence and instinct, you understand why these old methods have outlasted every commercial product ever invented. The complete mechanisms behind fly behavior, seasonal timing, and the exact chemistry of these traps, they're all laid out step by step in our detailed guide, which you'll find linked in the description and pinned in the comments below. It's where I've documented not just the how, but the why behind everything you're seeing today. The housefly trap, the one for the larger flies coming in from outside, begins with understanding what attracts them. Houseflies feed on protein, decay, fermentation. They smell a decomposing piece of meat from 40 yards away. They taste with their feet before they taste with their mouth. And when they land on something that smells like food, their immediate instinct is to vomit digestive juices onto it to break it down before they eat. This is crucial. The trap for a housefly is not about catching something beautiful or sweet. It's about creating something that smells like decay, like opportunity. And the oldest version of this trap uses a simple principle. You create an enclosed space with a small opening. You bait it with something irresistible, and the fly enters but cannot leave. The paper cone is the trap's genius. The fly sees the opening at the top as escape. The narrow point at the bottom actually leads nowhere. It just becomes too small for the fly to navigate back up through. It's not a cage, it's a perception problem. Now the bait. For a housefly, you want protein that's beginning to turn. A piece of chicken that's been sitting 2 or 3 days. Fish scraps. Liver. Anything that smells like food waste. You place this at the bottom of the jar. The smell rises through that narrow point and exits the top opening. The fly smells the decay, enters through the open top, follows the scent down to the bait, and when it tries to escape, it heads for light, which is the narrow point of the cone, where it becomes confused and disoriented. Once a few flies enter, the smell inside grows stronger. More flies come. Within a few hours, you have 10 or 15 flies in the jar. Within a day, you might have 30. The trap has done the work of days of wave-away frustration, and it cost you a piece of paper and 5 minutes to build. The fruit fly trap is completely different. It's based on a different chemistry because the fruit fly is attracted to fermentation, not decay. The smell of yeast, the smell of sugar breaking down into alcohol. Fruit flies have been riding on fruit, following fermentation for millions of years. They're not looking for meat. They're looking for the sweet, slightly alcoholic smell of fruit that's beginning to turn. Apple cider vinegar is almost perfect for this because it already smells like fermentation. It has that yeasty quality, that slight funk that says to a fruit fly, "Come here, your food is here." You fill a jar about a quarter full with apple cider vinegar. Then 1 small drop, and I mean small, of dish soap. Just enough to break the surface tension. This is the trap's invisible mechanism. Fruit flies have evolved to land on fermenting fruit and float on the surface. They have hydrophobic legs, water-resistant legs, that let them walk on liquid without sinking. But soap breaks that surface tension. When the fruit fly lands, it can't float. It sinks. The trap works because the fly's own instincts work against it. It smells food. It lands to feed. And the very adaptations that kept it alive for millennia, those water-resistant legs, become the thing that kills it. Two traps, two chemistries, two different answers to the same season, and they cost almost nothing to make. But here's what I want you to understand. These traps are not the main line of defense in an Amish home. They're supplementary. They're what you use because despite perfect storage, despite perfect timing, flies still find their way in. They're the backup plan. The real defense is the system. It's the understanding that nothing, not a trap, not a chemical, not a commercial product, will ever fully protect you if you're fighting against the seasons instead of working with them. The flies don't come because you're lazy or careless. They come because summer is the time when decay accelerates, when fermentation happens faster, when the whole natural world is in a state of rapid change. Your job is not to stop that change. Your job is to stay ahead of it. And when you do that, when you move the fruit before it fully ripens, when you store it where it can't ferment, when you manage the air in your kitchen based on the time of day and the temperature outside, the flies become fewer. The traps catch a handful instead of hordes. And by the time autumn arrives and the temperature drops, there are almost no flies left to trap at all. This is the secret I promised you at the beginning. The reason these old methods still work after 150 years, while commercial fly strips come and go, while spray bottles sit unused under sinks, while the pest control industry keeps selling new products to solve the same problem year after year. The secret is that there is no secret. There's only understanding. Understanding what a fly actually needs to survive. Understanding how your home's temperature and air movement and food storage patterns either invite flies in or shut them out. And understanding that a trap is not a solution. It's an admission that you couldn't prevent the problem before it started. The Amish understand something that most modern households have forgotten. Prevention is always cheaper than remedy. It always has been. Your great-grandparents did not have the luxury of buying a new box of fly strips every 2 weeks. They could not afford to call an exterminator or spray poison in the rooms where their children slept. So they learned instead. They learned to store fruit in sealed containers. They learned to empty the compost bin daily instead of letting it ferment in the heat. They learned to keep the drain traps clean, to cover leftovers immediately, to sweep crumbs from the floor before nightfall. These were not optional habits. They were survival. And when a fly did make it past all those layers of prevention, they had a trap waiting. Pennies. No toxins, no dependency on the hardware store, complete self-reliance. This is where the real power lies. Not in the trap itself. Any trap works once you understand the chemistry. The power lies in knowing that you do not have to buy anything. That when August arrives and the flies come, you can reach into your pantry and build a solution in 5 minutes from things you already own. No store runs, no waiting, no cost. That is not just pest control. That is freedom. That is what it means to be genuinely self-sufficient. I want you to understand something fundamental here. The Amish do not see a fly problem as something that requires innovation or a trip to town. They see it as information. A fly in the kitchen tells you that your food storage failed. A fruit fly in the drain tells you that you missed a cleaning step. A housefly near the compost tells you that bacteria are breeding in a place they should not be. Every pest is a message. The trap is just the translator. And once you start reading those messages, everything changes. Here is what most people miss when they watch a video like this. They think the trap is the lesson. They think they will go home, build a fly trap, and suddenly their summer will be fly-free. But that is backward. The trap is not the lesson. The pattern is. The pattern of prevention. The pattern of daily habits that make the trap unnecessary. The trap is just the backup plan. The safety net. The thing you build because you are human and sometimes you slip. Sometimes a window gets left open. Sometimes a guest brings in groceries without checking for flies. Sometimes life happens faster than intention. The second pattern, the one you might not have expected, is about dignity. When you build your own trap instead of buying one, when you use ingredients from your pantry instead of paying for a product branded and packaged and shipped from somewhere you will never know, you are reclaiming something. You are saying that your intelligence, your observation, your hands and your memory are worth more than your money. You are saying that problems in your home are yours to solve, not some corporation's opportunity to profit. This is the Amish way. Not because they are against commerce or against spending, but because there is a difference between buying what you need and buying what you have been convinced to need. Now I will tell you the secret I promised you at the beginning of this video. The reason these methods work is not because they are old. It is not because they are rustic or traditional or connected to a vanishing way of life. The reason they work is because they are built on observation and reason, the same tools that built modern pest control science. The Amish simply never stopped using them. They never outsourced their thinking to a label or a company or an advertisement. They watched what happened. They tested what worked. They refined the method, and they passed it down to the next generation not as folklore, but as practical knowledge that solved a real problem. You can spend the rest of your summer buying new fly strips every 2 weeks for $9 a box. You can spray poison that smells wrong and leaves residue on surfaces where you prepare food. You can search online for complicated electronic solutions that promise to solve the problem but somehow never quite do. Or you can spend 5 minutes building these 2 traps from ingredients you already have, place them in your kitchen, and move on with your life. The choice is yours. But if you want to know the deeper patterns, the chemistry behind why these traps work, why certain materials matter more than others, how to adapt these methods to your specific climate and kitchen setup, and what else the Amish do each season to keep pests out of the home, all of that is in the complete guide I have put together. You can find it linked in the description and in the pinned comment. It goes into the science, the history, and the practical applications. It is the full picture. This video is just the introduction. I want to leave you with one small challenge before you go. This week, pick one room in your home where you have been relying on a commercial pest control product. Before you buy it again, build one of these traps instead. Spend the 5 minutes. Use the pantry ingredients. Feel what it is like to solve a problem with your own hands instead of a purchase order. I think you will be surprised how much that changes your relationship with the problem itself. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new upload. Leave a comment below. I want to hear about your own experiences with flies, with old remedies, with the methods your own families have used. And please activate the notification bell so that when we post our next video on forgotten survival skills from the Amish and Plain communities, you are the first to know. These skills are disappearing faster than most people realize, and I am committed to documenting them before they are lost forever. Thank you for being part of that mission.